patterns that we do. But I think we should be good to go, so let's get started. Good afternoon. This is Ifan from the Strategic Day Trader, and this is your market wrap for February 12th, 2020. Q's up 0.94 and SPY up 0.64 here. Okay. Um, Coming into today, bullish bias, right? We talked about yesterday about the hourly pullback that we're getting into support. Today we got a gap up, base broke out to new highs here. Okay, so um, I like I referenced yesterday. It seems like I get this question every other day. Every time the market makes a new high, is this the high? Is this the top? Can I short this top? Can I, you know, is the market going to fall apart now or anything like that? And the answer is not that it can't be, or that it definitely isn't, or it definitely is, or it's just I'm following the trend here, right? And I'm using a smaller time frame here, the hourly. Basically, this is the 65-minute, the hourly, to help me inform, right, what is going to be the next trend on the daily, right? And then as I'm watching the daily, it's going to help inform, what is the weekly going to do, right? I'm using these smaller time frames to help inform what I should expect from the time frame above, and weekly onto the monthly, right? So on and so forth. And so, now with an hourly and an uptrend, and then the daily and the weekly and the monthly all in an uptrend, right? That should make it pretty clear. Going into tomorrow, the bias is going to be bullish. Okay? All right, so we'll watch for a trend break on the hourly. If we get one, we can start to talk about a short-term pullback. If that pullback gives pretty good follow through, actually starts to change the uptrend on the daily, we can start to talk about a longer-term pullback or a potential top. So it's very kind of premature for now, as far as kind of anticipating any top with every time frame being in an uptrend, right? And the thing that I'm looking for potentially is if we do accelerate, we put in wide range green bars here on the market, something that resembles a blow off top, we could look for that. Haven't seen anything near that and anything that resembles that in the last few months here. All this uptrend is relatively small bars, pretty close to the 20 MA grind, right, on the Qs and SPY. So, or we could get a large gap down that ends the uptrend, right, leaving behind a lot of shock kind of with all of these kind of buyers in trouble and a really harsh trend change for the market. So those are the two things that we've been kind of keeping an eye out for, looking for the last few months, and we haven't gotten it. So it's been kind of mostly bullish bias. Occasionally we got some short-term pullback that we expect, but at no point has the long-term trend changed. At no point have we gotten any indication of a permanent top. Okay, and I know for those of you that watch the market wrap daily, this has kind of been what we've had as kind of the read on the market for weeks and weeks now. Occasionally, like I said, short-term pullback at times here, and then we'll figure out where it is that we lose that bias and resume the uptrend. Okay, all right, so let's take a look at we'll start with the IPG here. Was just finishing up this play here in the afternoon. This one was pretty elusive. I liked this gap a lot, and I really wanted to play it basically at any point it set up. Any setup. There was only a couple setups maybe here closer to lunchtime that, like, all right, it's not exactly what I want, I'll pass on it. But there was an attempt to play it over this base here, right? If it breaks, makes a new high, play it there. Stop would have gone down here. Ended up coming in instead. Kept on going. Did this grind. Looked like it was going to transition out of the grind. So I did give this play as an idea here. If you want to play this breakout, would have been pretty nice. And then finally in the afternoon, right, we got this breakout here. Okay, and I really like the gap. That was really the first and foremost aspect about this, as is a lot of plays. Look at how well it has been kind of stuck in this range, and then now getting out of that range, clearing above, right? So nice 15-minute base here, established, and then was able to break out of it, right? And that's what you want to see typically on a base breakout. Now we'll look at another example that was played this morning that did not start that way, right? And this is a good start to this play. Now what you want to be careful of when you get these kind of breakouts and big volume comes in is that you want to guard against a breakout failure. And usually if you're going to get something that looks like a breakout failure, what's going to happen is you get the breakout bar, and then you get the inside bar as you're getting here. And then if it breaks underneath the inside bar, a lot of times that's actually not a good sign, and you're looking at a potential breakout that's about to fail. Okay, the good thing is kind of right off the bat, if you're able to get it at a decent price, depending, because it did trigger pretty quick, that, there was some profit to be had. And even if it trailed under that inside bar, it still would have been a decent play. The good thing is, it didn't trail and just kept on going, right? So that was kind of the nice thing about that IPG. And we talked about yesterday kind of, how to manage. Now, especially like later in the afternoon, you're not going to get a lot of hourly bars to work with here. But, always good, just like the JKS yesterday, when the hourly trend stays intact. And JKS did it again even today. So, even more follow through today on that JKS. Okay, so, and then JKS yesterday was also a 15-minute base breakout. And just for fun, another one here that was given just as an idea, and that was the WD ETF. I didn't end up playing this one, but see, 15-minute base breakout, right? And then off it goes, right? So some nice breakouts today. I only just was a little bit annoyed at the IPG just because I had kind of been waiting on it all day and trying to get a play on it. And I did pass on some plays, both of which worked. There was a pullback and a base breakout, pullback in here, a base breakout in here. And then finally, I did like that strength up there for a one more breakout there. Okay, now also to compare breakouts here, let's take a look at this MU. So the MU, I did give this a shot on the MU right over this space. You can see the consolidation here. Okay, the gap's pretty good too. A little bit kind of sloppier on the daily chart, the kind of larger pattern by comparison, not as eventful as the IPG. Like, notice how like the IPG, right? You see all this resistance here to the left, and kind of the first time that it's breaking above it in over a year. MU, has already had this upward grind. It's been in this area before relatively recently. So, not as impressive, but still I think a good a case still to be played long, right? That's what, based on the gap, based on the relative strength that was showing this morning, couldn't come off the highs, still worth a shot. Now, one thing I think people justified in doing so is that if they break out and they don't go right away, is to just kind of give up on it, right? And maybe kill it early. I don't have a problem with that. I think if you get something, it immediately kind of comes right back down or engulfs your entry bar, and you don't want to keep your stop down here at the bottom of the base, I think that's fine. A lot of these, when they act like that, will fail, okay? For me, we did keep our stop down here. I didn't want to kill it early. In fact, it set up another base here, right? You can see how it kind of set up again. And if you do kind of are tighter with the management, maybe you do have to consider, do you want to replay it or not? But what it did do was set up another 5-minute breakout. And then once it broke out, kind of did the same thing, broke out, had a little bit of trouble following through there, okay? And so, the thing about the runner management, which we talked about yesterday on the JKS, is that it's not, if I knew that they were all going to just go and close at the highs, right? Why would I wouldn't even need a management. I wouldn't even need to trail, right? And so the benefit is not so much I guess it's a benefit, the peace of mind of knowing that you get to trail. But also, if it turns out that it's not going to continue, that it has found a top, and maybe it didn't get to target, right? You do get to trail. If you got to your target, you got to take some, you still would like to hold a runner, right? You don't have to give the whole thing back. So as we did on this MU, right, trailed it under 60.60, just because that was, the planned management. We got a new high, wanted to be in it as long as it made sense for me to be in it. Use the hourly to help us trail, right? And I think it was a pretty good trail, right? So of course I would have preferred if it actually just kept going, looked more like the JKS or the IPG at the end of the day, right? But that's the reason, like, for the management, right? So if I, even though I've determined I like what's happening here, I like the relative strength, I like the bullishness on the daily and the weekly, right? They're not all going to go. Maybe today's just not the day for the MU. And so while there was, some profit to be had, right, it wasn't as much as I was looking for. So that's why we trailed it as we did. Okay, so just a couple breakouts. I think one thing that I wanted to point out that was clearly different from the way that the MU acted and the IPG acted was the way that they got started, right? And so that's something that, if you want to consider putting it in your management, that if something, has a breakout bar and the breakout bar gets negated, perhaps, that's something that you want to look to trail early prior to it actually failing and breaking underneath the base, right? And so that's something that you can put in your manage to guard against. The thing that I do have would be like if this IPG had gotten underneath this bar, right, I would have trailed. You guys have seen me do that sometimes in the room when that is relevant. So, okay. Otherwise, I thought that today's gaps list was kind of weak. Like there was a lot, but not a lot of good quality. So, I'm hopeful that tomorrow we get a better quality list. We had a lot of gaps, just not a lot of things that I thought were worth playing. I thought all the gap downs were too big to be played, the triple BY. And maybe, as a result, you could have looked to flip them or something. But, too big, really only need a gap to maybe like 1250 or so. That was too big. Cyber was okay. Wasn't so much the size, but into support, NSP, really big gap. So, some of these I thought just a little bit too big to look to short because they're a little bit too oversized. And so, I thought today's gaps list pretty unimpressive. So I'm glad we were able to, still make something out of today. But, hopefully tomorrow's will be better. Okay? And I will talk to you then. All right? Have a good evening.